Hi guys, and welcome back to another true crime and makeup time video. So today's case is a little bit different. It's about an unsolved disappearance, and I stumbled across this story when I was just scrolling on Reddit, and I just could not stop thinking about it. Imagine you're a parent. You take your family out to an arcade and there are a lot of people around. You go there to have fun. You want to play the games. You're keeping an eye on your child, but you're also really into the games. While you're playing, you look up, keep checking on your child, and one time you look up and you notice they're not there anymore. You search everywhere, but they are nowhere to be found. This is the bizarre case of Yukari Yokoyama. And before we get into the story, I just want to address a couple things that I keep seeing popping up in my comments, and they're really annoying. So both of these things that keep popping up have to do with my appearance, and I just find it so weird that people feel so entitled that they feel like they have a right to say what someone should look like. So number one, my dark circles. I mean, I don't know what people want me to do about them. I do think the lighting that I'm using does emphasize them. They don't look this dark in person, but even if they did, like, why do you care? I don't get what people want me to do about them. What do you want me to do? Like, delete them off my face? I can't, okay? It's genetic. Also, I do think that the lighting does make it look a lot worse in some videos. Sometimes on what you're watching, if you're watching on a TV, sometimes it looks like more contrasting, but I like this lighting and that's why I'm going to keep it. Number two, a lot of people say I'm wearing a wig, and some people even say you should be getting a better wig. And it's like, well, this isn't a wig, first of all. It's my hair. And I think the reason why people are saying that is because of my baby hairs, and that's just how my baby hairs grow. They genuinely grow that way. And if I don't slick them down, they're super fluffy looking and it just like bothers me. And then if I look up, I have so much short hair because I had babies. My hair is still growing back. It's going to take probably a long time. So it's not a wig, and nothing wrong with wigs. I would love to wear a wig, but yeah, it's not a wig. So I don't know. I can't change my wig because this is my hair. Okay, so those are the two things I just wanted to point out. Cool, you don't like my dark circles, you don't have to watch the video, okay? Don't like my wig, don't watch the video. So like I said, this case is really wild, and I feel like if you knew people who grew up in the 90s, you know, they always talk about growing up in the 90s, or if you grew up in the 90s, you'll kind of understand this a little bit more. But if you didn't, you'll also be like, what the heck? This is how people treated their kids in the 90s, and they kind of did. Yukari Yokoyama was born in 1992 to her parents Yasuo and Mitsuko. They lived in Ota City in Gunma, Japan, and Yasuo and Mitsuko also had another daughter. She was 3 years younger than Yukari, but we don't know her name. And they were just a typical middle-class family in Japan, and they loved their children. Yasuo and Mitsuko loved to take their girls out, and they would go out on these family outings. And for these outings, they would love to just hop in their car and go for long drives, go to hot springs, hotels, and fun parks where Yukari and her younger sister could just play and have fun. One weekend in July 1996, that weekend was actually a famous summer holiday in Japan called Tanabata, and the family went out for their usual outing. Tanabata is known as the Star Festival, and I know I'm probably not pronouncing it the best way possible, but it's known as the Star Festival, and it takes place on the 7th day of the 7th month when, according to a Chinese legend, the two stars, Altair and Vega, they are usually separated by the Milky Way, but on this day, they are able to finally meet. And one popular custom is to write a wish on a piece of paper, and you hang this wish on this piece of paper from this specially erected bamboo tree. And you do this in the hopes that this wish you make comes true. These Tanabata festivals are so colorful, so beautiful, and they take place in early July and August, I believe, in Japan. So on that weekend, it was the 7th of July, 1996, Yasuo and Mitsuko took their two daughters to a Pachinko parlor. The game Pachinko is essentially a pinball game. And even these pachinko parlor games I found so interesting. So essentially there's an arcade and heaps of these games are side by side, very similar to the setup of slot machines. So the way you play pachinko, from what I understand, is there are these little silver balls, and I believe they're at the bottom, I think, and you launch them, and for every little ball that you get into a hole, you would draw these balls and you can redeem them for prizes. And I believe the goal is to make these balls, reach certain spots. So like reward spots, depending on how much power you put into launching them. So I hope that makes sense. If I'm wrong, please correct me in the comments below. Now, if you didn't know, Japan has very strict laws on gambling. And how the hell did I not know this? But despite these strict laws, Japan has a very popular gambling culture. And it's just funny. It goes to show you the human spirit. Most forms of gambling are banned, but there are many exceptions. And a lot of people focus on sports betting. And I believe horse racing is the most popular. But pachinko is, I guess, another gambling favorite. And Japan forbids cash prizes, right? So instead you exchange those little silver balls that you collect for other prizes like cigarettes, chocolate, pencils, lighters, etc. But I'm like, who wants that, But it's like an addiction, right? Because you're gambling and you're getting something for it. But that doesn't mean you can't get cash, because there are plenty of places that would trade you for the prizes that you receive at these pachinko parlors for cash. Many pachinko parlors, from what I can see, are huge, and there are heaps and heaps and heaps of machines. And I watched a video of what one of them is like currently, and it is extremely loud, like very loud. And I feel like most casinos are, but this one I saw was so extremely loud. And I think it's because every single pachinko machine makes noise and plays music. So it's like all those machines making noise collectively, and it's like so loud. The video I watched, the guy, he's trying to talk and you can't even hear him really in the camera. And when he goes outside, you can hear like the sheer volume difference. It's wild. And back in the day, smoking was allowed in pachinko parlors. So can you imagine, with all that noise, there's also like filled with smoke. So that's amazing. But nowadays, I think you can choose like smoking pachinko parlors or non-smoking pachinko parlors. And what I gather is pachinko parlors essentially are Japan's slot machines. The game provides jobs for over 320,000 people, including people like released criminals. And, those people may not be able to get jobs as easily elsewhere. But I do find it weird that they're allowed to work in a job that has to do with gambling, but maybe the laws are different there. For most players, pachinko is a harmless pastime, relieves their stress from their daily lives. And I'm not sure if currently today children are allowed inside pachinko parlors. I believe from what I was reading, it's over 18s only, but the 90s were different. So on that day, July 7th, Yasuo and Mitsuko wanted to enjoy the pachinko parlor, so they took their family there for their outing. They arrived at a pachinko parlor in Oda City just before noon. At the time, Yukari was 4 years old and her sister was 1. When they arrived at the parlor, Yasuo and Mitsuko, they split up. Mitsuko took their 1-year-old daughter with her, and Yasuo, he went to a pachinko machine at a different row, a little bit further away from Mitsuko. And this left Yukari free to play and wander the parlor by herself. And I will never understand how parents did this. Like, I can't do anything I truly enjoy if I have my kids with me, like something that I want to do for myself. I can't do it if my kids are with me. Like, my kids are great, honestly. Like, they really are kind of easy kids for their age. They're not too cray-cray. They listen and, but my son is 4 and he does not stop asking questions. He doesn't stop talking and he's like me. And if I took my kids to this parlor, like, my son, first of all, would ask a million questions about the place, like, why are the lights green, blah, 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 blah. And then my daughter would, like, keep asking me to pick her up and, like, cuddle her. And then you need to feed them. You need to give them snacks. You need to give them water. He needs to go to the bathroom. You need to change their diaper. Like, why are you even going there? I would rather just take them to a park and let them rule my world, because why I can't even like play the game, you know? But really the 90s were different, I think. I really think things were different back then because I remember growing up, like I would just shut up and chill till my parents were done doing what they were doing. You know, like now I feel like kids, you're going to be like, sit down. I need to have this drink. And they're going to be like, fuck your drink. Like, you know what I mean? Like kids are so different now. And I think it's the parenting that's really changed. And Japan is also viewed as a pretty safe country. So it wasn't really like the most unusual thing to bring your kids along to everything back then. Kids being left unattended for a period of time wasn't really an unusual thing. So Yasuo and Mitsuko are enjoying their time at the Pachinko parlor and lunchtime rolls around. So Mitsuko, she gets some lunch for the kids and she takes Yukari and her sister out to the parking lot where their car was parked so that all of them could eat their lunch. And during this time, Yukari wasn't really hungry. So her little sister finished her lunch and then they went back inside the parlor so her parents could continue playing their game. So soon after they get back inside the parlor, as her parents continue to play, Yukari approaches her mother, Mitsuko, and she tells her, well, now I'm hungry. And that's exactly what kids do. So Mitsuko gives Yukari an onigiri, which is a Japanese rice bowl, and an orange juice. And she tells her to go sit down on the couch so she could eat her snack and Mitsuko could keep an eye on her. And from the footage, it looks like there's rows of pachinko machines. And at the end of this one row that Mitsuko was playing at, so if Mitsuko was playing, like imagine we're in a row, Mitsuko is playing on this row, on this machine right here. At the end right here, there's a couch. It's probably like 2-3 meters away, probably three, possibly even 4 meters away actually. And so if Mitsuko is playing at the machine right now, and if she looks back, she can see Yukari sitting on the couch. And Yukari goes and she begins to eat her snack on the couch. So as Yukari is eating her snack, Mitsuko continues playing Pachinko, and I believe the younger daughter was with their father Yasuo at the time. At around 1:40 p.m., Yukari comes up to her mother and she tells her something about an uncle. Now, like I said, these Pachinko parlors are very, very loud. So as Yukari is telling her mother about this uncle, Mitsuko can't really hear what she's saying. So I don't know if Mitsuko tells Yukari, I can't hear what you're saying. Maybe she brushed her off, or maybe she told her to just go back to the couch. Either way, Yukari, she goes back to the couch she was eating her snack on without fully explaining what she was really trying to say to her mother, Mitsuko. Now, uncle in Japan and many other cultures really basically refers to an older man. It doesn't mean that Yukari was talking about her real biological uncle. So when Yukari was telling her mom about this uncle, she was not referring to a family member. She would have just been referring to any older male. Around 10 minutes later, Mitsuko, she looks up from the machine and she looks back to check on Yukari, and she notices that Yukari wasn't sitting on the couch like she had been the entire time. So Mitsuko, she gets up from the machine, she walks on over to the couch to check the area, and she finds Yukari's half-eaten onigiri and the orange juice. Those items were still there, but Yukari wasn't. So Mitsuko, she goes, finds Yasuo and tells him, like, Yukari, where is she? She's not here. So the two of them, they go search the entire Pachinko parlor, the bathrooms, they searched the parking lot, they searched between the cars, they searched everywhere. But Yukari was nowhere to be found. After Yukari's parents searched for over an hour, at around 2:40 p.m., they go to a police station that was close by and they reported Yukari as missing. Over the next 2 days, police search the entire area over and over again with no luck. And they had over 70 police officers looking for Yukari. The police interviewed other customers who were at the Pachinko parlor that same day, and a lot of them don't remember anything because they were too engrossed in playing the game. And those that do remember seeing Yukari around, just remember her as being another kid waiting for her parents. So they couldn't say whether they saw anything or anyone particularly suspicious. Then one of the customers did say that they remember seeing a girl that matched Yukari's description in the Pachinko parking lot, and she was getting into a white car around the time she disappeared. Unfortunately, Yukari's disappearance was nothing new for the police. This seemed to be a common occurrence at Pachinko parlors. Between April 1995 and June 1996, according to a survey by the newspaper Mainichi Shimbun, 30 children died while their parents played at Pachinko parlors. 30 over the course of 1 year. Many children were hit by vehicles in the Pachinko parking lots. Many were left overheating in cars. They were left in these cars while their parents played. And one of these children, a boy, he fell into a ditch that was filled with water and he drowned. According to this survey, this is one of Japan's dirty secrets. Summer after summer, parents get their gaming fix at Pachinko parlors while they leave their small children in cars alone, where many of them die. A very small percentage of stupid parents leave their kids in cars so that they can play. And in 2011, a 1-year-old baby girl died while her parents played in this Pachinko parlor for 6 hours. They left her alone in the car for 6 hours. And other babies or small children, they die in these cars, during the summer usually due to dehydration or heat stroke. It's gambling, addiction, and gambling sometimes causes people to do things they wouldn't usually do. That phenomenon of parents leaving their kids in cars is another just horrendous thing, that mistakes we make as parents. But what happened to Yukari? She wasn't left in a car. Granted, she wasn't in the best situation for a young child, but her parents were somewhat keeping an eye on her. Then police reviewed the CCTV footage from inside the Pachinko parlor. What they found was extremely distressing. In this footage, they see what appears to be a man sitting next to Yukari on this couch, and he's having a conversation with Yukari. This man was seen entering the parlor at about 1:27 p.m. He looks to be about 5 feet to about 158 centimeters, I believe. So he's quite short, and he's wearing sunglasses, a hat, sandals, and a black jacket. And he looks to be between the ages of 30 and 50. So initially when he enters the parlor, he enters and he goes straight to the bathroom at the back. At 1:33 p.m., as he re-enters the main area of the parlor, he sees Yukari sitting on the couch, and he goes up to her and he sits down right next to her. Yukari is wearing this pretty white, I believe it's like a frilly, fluffy dress, and he is smoking a cigarette right next to her. And as he's sitting next to Yukari, he is chatting very, very closely to her, almost whispering in this little girl's ear. As he's chatting with Yukari, I don't know what conversation he's having with a 4-year-old little girl, but he's talking to her, he's basically whispering in her ear, and then he's seen pointing his finger at the entrance of the Pachinko parlor, almost telling her, oh, something's out there. As he's chatting with Yukari, he also begins walking up and down the aisle, the same aisle that Mitsuko, Yukari's mother, was playing at. And then at 1:42 p.m., he gets up off the couch and he leaves the parlor. Now, remember I said at 1:40 p.m., Yukari goes up to her mother and she tries to tell her about this uncle. It was then that Yukari got up and did this to her mother. The uncle Yukari was referring to was this man that was talking to her. Now, I Googled it, and Japanese sources quote Yukari as telling her mother about an oji-chan, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is a more affectionate way of saying oji-san, which is a more respectful, I guess, formal way of saying grandmother or grandfather. So I think it's like saying granny instead of grandmother. So what I read is that this uncle may have been pretty friendly with her for her to refer to him as this way. She may have seen him as being quite harmless. But after Yukari's mother pays her no mind about this uncle, the footage shows Yukari walking back towards the couch. But then she immediately walks over to the entrance of the Pachinko parlor and she leaves the building. No CCTV footage was available for the parking lot of the parlor. So that is the last known place that Yukari was. Then there was this witness who says that she saw Yukari possibly getting into this white car around the same time that she had left the building. And look, this most likely was her. And this just gives me chills because 4-year-olds, kids are so easily manipulated. I feel that this man was telling her that something was in his car or that he could possibly take her somewhere to see something. I mean, look, she may have been waiting for her parents at that time for like a couple of hours. So what if he enticed her with something? Toys, more food. I feel like she might have been trying to tell her mother what this man may have been offering her, saying to her, and her mother was busy playing. So Yukari possibly decided to go and check out this offer for herself. The police released posters to help find Yukari. The posters said that her appearance was one with a wide forehead, big ears, and an oval birthmark on the left side of her stomach. They also said she had an identifying mark on the back of her bottom, but that was all the distinguishing features of Yukari. Footage of this man was spread everywhere, shown all over the media, flyers, all around the city, all over Japan, but he was never identified. Never. The sad thing is, this wasn't an unknown situation. This man clearly had something to do with Yukari's disappearance. I mean, he was seen talking to her, enticing her with something. If he had nothing to do with it, why didn't he come forward? Police believe it's 99% clear that this man took Yukari. But the question was, who was he? What was his motive? What did he want with Yukari? So the theories poured in, and some believe that this man had seen Yukari earlier, and when he saw her sitting on the couch by herself is when he decided to make his move. And others believe that when he walked in at 1:27 p.m., that was the first time that he had seen Yukari, and he decided to take advantage of a situation where he saw a small child was being left unattended. For me, I feel like the second theory kind of makes more sense because he was in the parlor for 15 minutes and he didn't even play on a single machine. Just 15 minutes when most people stay in these parlors for hours. Did he enter the parlor intending to play, but then saw Yukari immediately, near the entrance? But the people who believe that this was a pre-planned kidnapping believed that his appearance was intentionally meant to be a disguise. Now, I looked a little bit into disappearances of kids around this time, and since 1979, there were 4 cases of little girls being kidnapped that were between the ages of 4 and 8 years old. And all these cases took place in Oda City, so where Yukari was from, and from another city called Ashikaga City. So I don't know if these are related, we don't know, but I think it's important to mention them. So on 3rd August 1979, 5-year-old Maya Fukushima went missing while playing at a shrine next to her house in Ashikaga, and her body was found naked in a rucksack 6 days later, abandoned next to the Watarase River. On 17th November 1984, 5-year-old Yumi Hasebe went missing from a pachinko parlor. Her body was found on 8th March 1986, 2 years later, in a field 1.7 kilometers away from her home. That's not even far at all. 2 years later, and her body was found close to home. On 15 September 1987, 8-year-old Tomoko Osawa left her house in Ota and went missing. Her body was found a year later, on 27th November 1988, abandoned by the Tone River. On 12 May 1990, 4-year-old Mami Matsuda went missing from a pachinko parlor and was later found dead at the Watarase River nearby. Yukari Yokoyama also went missing from a pachinko parlor, but she has never been found. I mean, if you look at all those cases, those 4 cases, most of their bodies were found by the side of a river. I mean, they all seem connected to me. If the same person who did this to these poor girls did this to Yukari, what was different about Yukari? Why was she never found? Was it just a coincidence? Or is she still alive? Japanese police were petitioning the country's pachinko industry to help prevent children from being left in cars while their parents played in the parlors. Police were urging these parlors to have staff patrol their parking lots and deny entry to parents who were leaving their kids in these cars. Some pachinko parlors have really small parking lots. Some have no parking lots. But in Japan, in the suburbs, there are huge, huge pachinko parlors that have these multi-level parking garages that can hold thousands of cars. And I mean, can you imagine the amount of kids that could be left alone in these multi-level garages? I mean, it really, really is a problem. You would need multiple staff to patrol these parking lots. And I mean, I don't know if these pachinko parlors are willing to spend the money doing that. If anything, it's really driving their customer away, right? Maybe customers would rather go to a more lax pachinko parlor with less rules. Many of them probably are addicted and don't have someone to watch their kids. So I don't know if pachinko parlors really would be willing to do that. The parents of girls who were kidnapped or murdered in those series of unsolved cases between 1979 and 1996, they all sort of banded together, formed a team to make progress in those cases, find out who did it. The events leading up to, or the motives of the perpetrator or perpetrators, are thought by many to be very similar, to suggest that the cases may have been linked. I mean, I feel like they very much are linked. Yukari's parents were hoping to find information that might lead to some closure in regards to those unsolved murders, and hopefully this information could help them in possibly finding Yukari alive. Yukari's father, Yasuo, was quoted as saying, "I want her to come back safely. I will never stop until I find her." Every year without fail, Yasuo and Mitsuko, they appeal to the public and to the police to help them find their missing child. Police put up flyers and put the news bulletin out with sketches of what Yukari might look like now if she was still alive. If she's alive somewhere out there, Yukari now would be 31 years old. And I don't even know if she would have known she was even taken, because she was so young when it happened. But at the same time, a 4-year-old is pretty alert and may have some memories of her parents. Hope is super hard to keep after all these years, but her parents have never given up. Mitsuko, Yukari's mother, has said, "We have written our wish on Tanabata slips many times over the past years, but our wish has not come true. For 20 years, I have never thought of Tanabata as a beautiful day." A lot of people have hated on Yukari's parents for leaving her alone, saying that she was too young to not be monitored more closely. And I have to agree and disagree. 4-year-olds are funny. They're kind of still like babies, but then they're also so independent. So I can see how if they believed that the parlor was a safe place, maybe they had been there multiple times, maybe they had taken Yukari and her sister there multiple times and nothing ever happened before. I can see how they thought it was okay. And in the 90s, times were really different back then. So I understand that thought process where they were like, she'll be fine. She's sitting on the couch, she's going to be fine. But in saying that, these cases of children, especially little girls, in the exact age range of your daughter was current at the time. There were kids going missing in pachinko parlors, in the city you're in. It's kind of like you didn't really take that into consideration. And I know most people don't think that kind of stuff is going to happen to them. But as a parent, you know, it's your duty to take care of these kids. And, you know, that I think is the saddest thing of all. And I don't think they'll ever forgive themselves. A reward of 6 million yen was being offered by a gaming association for information connected to Yukari's disappearance. And I believe this offer still stands. By June 2019, police received more than 4,400 tips, but none led to any further information or ultimately finding Yukari. What happened to her? So till this day, we don't know. I don't know if we'll ever know. If that man was in his 50s, he's probably like 80 now. And this case really breaks my heart. I always try and think about what the victim was feeling in that moment. Wonder what Yukari was feeling when she realized, if she did get in that white car, what she was feeling when she realized she's never going back to her parents. What happens in a child's mind? Like, do they just kind of, I mean, you know, given nothing horrible was happening to her, oh my gosh, what she must have been thinking. Do they slowly just forget the parents and the old life that they had? I'm sure that's what happens. And I pray she's still alive, but is that really in her best interest if she's not being treated the best way? I mean, you've heard about cases where kids are kidnapped and, you know, raised by someone who wanted children so bad and couldn't have children. And usually in those cases, I mean, I don't know, the kidnapper gives them a good life, but it's like, what if the 20 years she's been missing has been filled with pain and torture? Yukari wasn't found dead. Was there a reason for that? Whoever took her, were they linked to those 4 other cases, or was it a completely separate case that just kind of matched the motive? It's horrifying to think about this happening to a little child. It's so important that we keep our kids so close to us and never for a second think we can trust anyone with our children, because people truly can be the most evil. I hope if she's still out there, we find out some information about her, someone remembers something. Let me know your thoughts on this case down below, guys, and I will see you in next week's video. Besitos. Bye.